It's the final battle. They're going after Trump, and if they can get Trump, it means they can get you, they can get me, they can get all of us. He is standing in the way, and that can sound like a campaign slogan, but it's very true. Now we're approaching the most important battle of our
When we get back power, I don't really want to have peace with these people who did this to us and are continuing to do this to us. We have to turn the tables on them, give them a dose of their own medicine, and then we can even the playing field, and then we can discuss unity.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Today is January 26th, 2026. Thank you so much for joining me, folks, to discover the truth beneath the surface. As always, I really do appreciate everybody out there taking the time to listen. And after a 2-week hiatus, first he was sick, then I was sick. I'm back with the great Mike King from realnewsandhistory.com, and we've got one heck of a show for you tonight. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you. How are you?
Well, like you, I spent the day shoveling, so it's been we got about anywhere from 1.5 to 2 feet of snow. So
Yeah.
I woke up this morning and got the snowblower going and spent a good chunk of my day outside freezing my butt off. But it is winter, it is New England, so I'm kind of used to it. And I know you kind of got similar treatment in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So, the storms are rolling in, and certainly we can only hope that the big storm, the one that we're all waiting for, we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight, is just over the horizon as well. So let me just kind of give folks a breakdown of the format for tonight's show. First, we're going to actually start. We're going to do a little bit of analysis on what's been happening in Minneapolis. And I'm sure everybody out there is anxious to get Mike's take on that. It's been really the focal point for weeks now, going back to the quality layering centers and the exposure of the Somali daycare fraud. And then, of course, we had the Renee Good scripted scene, the first shooting, and then this Alex Pretty, I think you pronounce it Pretty. Pretty Good is the meme that's been going around. How do you feel about ICE's progress? Pretty good. But anyway, this is rapidly accelerating, and indeed, it looks as if once again Minnesota is the epicenter for this. I guess you could say the buildup to the public invocation of the Insurrection Act. I always have to remind everybody that it was Mike King really who nailed this point home for me, that it was back on January 6th of 2021 that President Trump actually invoked the Insurrection Act. At the time, I have to admit, I did not know that. And it was only through talking to the great Mike King that the penny dropped on that one. But here we are. We've got 2 high-profile scripted shootings involving ICE. President Trump has essentially laid down the gauntlet to, quote-unquote, Tim Walz, demanding that he turn over criminal illegals. We're going to take a look at his Truth Social post, but basically saying that he has to turn over the criminal illegals. He has to end sanctuary city policies and cooperate with federal law enforcement, with ICE. He's also indicated that in an investigation into the vast fraud that I just mentioned a moment ago is already underway. Of course, we're watching the replay. We all know that. And he's announced that Tom Homan is en route to the state to take over ICE operations and answer directly to him. And then shortly thereafter that, he posted that he and the actor Tim Walz, whoever's playing Tim Walz, had a very productive phone call. So we're going to talk about all these developments, which have been really all over the front pages of the Q York Times, as Mike's going to point out, and perhaps speculate a little bit about where this is headed in the weeks ahead. So that's going to be the first segment tonight. The second segment, we're going to dive into one of Mike's recent Q York Times articles entitled, "The Chairman of Peace Wants Talks with Iran," of course, referring to Donald Trump as the chairman of the recently ratified Board of Peace. And that, of course, happened at Davos, of all places. ultimately going to replace the world government, pillar of the United Nations, for which 2 world wars were fought. That's something that Mike and I have talked about on many occasions. And so Mike's going to explain how the dynamics of geopolitics have been very cleverly inverted by Commander Trump. Specifically, he's going to contrast the historical examples of U.S. leaders calling for peace while posturing for war, with Trump doing the exact opposite, appearing to call for war while secretly setting the stage for peace. And we've seen this play out many times with North Korea, with Syria, Russia, China, Afghanistan, the list goes on and on. But this analysis is going to be more specific to Iran. And that was, of course, a nation that Q mentioned several times in the drops. And we're going to take a look at one of those drops specifically in the course of our discussion. And then finally, during the history segment tonight, we're going to go back in time. This was an article that actually is available on Mike's website, realnewsandhistory.com. The article title is called 1917, The Sudden Switch from Good Kaiser to Bad Kaiser. And so we're going to be taking a trip back to the years, I believe it was between 1913 and 1917, and examining how the usual suspects were able to re-engineer public perception on Kaiser Wilhelm II in the build-up to World War I. And Mike's going to explain how this once popular figure in the United States was gradually and very effectively demonized with the use of over-the-top propaganda in order to garner support for the cabal's effort to topple both the German and the Russian monarchies in its quest to establish the framework for the Balfour Declaration, and of course, advance the march toward world government, specifically the implementation of something we've talked about many times, the League of Nations, in the wake of the war. So that is the basic framework of the show tonight. Mike, hopefully I covered it pretty well. Before we dive in, we're just going to hear from our sponsor of tonight's show really quickly, and we'll be right back with you folks. Hey, everybody, this is Patriot. I wanted to take a minute to tell you folks about a small American company that I've been checking out called Pure Tallow, and it's actually owned by a listener of my show. This is genuinely small batch, American-made skincare built around integrity and intention, not mass production. Everything is made by hand, packaged in glass, and created with real care for quality and customer service. The foundation of their products is grass-fed tallow, a traditional ingredient that you've been hearing a lot about since RFK Jr. came on the scene, but it's been used for generations to nourish and protect skin. These products have no toxins, no additives, no synthetic fragrances, just clean, honest formulas for people who care about what goes on their skin. And I venture to say that everybody out there listening falls into that category. What I appreciate about this brand is that it's clearly run by a real person who actually stands behind what she makes. This is not corporate skincare. It is thoughtful, small batch work made with intention and goodwill. They offer simple products for both skin and hair, designed to work without overcomplicating things or adding unnecessary ingredients. So if you're someone who values quality, transparency, and supporting American small businesses, you can check them out at bepuretallow.com. Again, that's bepuretallow.com. I dropped a link in the description, and if you use promo code PU15, you'll get 15% off of your order. This is a win-win, folks. You get an incredible product. You get to support a small American business and my show in the process. Check them out. All right, so here we are, Mike, and we are going to start out tonight's show with a little bit of analysis about what's been going on in Minneapolis. I front-loaded it quite a bit, obviously. This is going back several weeks that the buildup of this, the ratcheting up of tension has been going on. So let me just turn it over to you and have you kind of give us a broad spectrum analysis of it, and then maybe we can pepper in some of Trump's recent Truth Social posts that seem to indicate where this might be headed.
Well, I've got a piece going out tonight, an anti-New York Times piece on this very subject. And as you may have noticed by now, conspicuous by its absence, is I haven't commented on Minnesota at all in these last 2 weeks. I was tempted. I think I mentioned it in passing, but it wasn't the subject of an article. And there's a reason for that. It's because we've seen so many of these false starts where we're led to believe this is it. This is the invocation of the Insurrection Act was coming, National Guard, Marines. We saw that in Los Angeles, Chicago, D.C., Memphis, Portland, and on it goes. And then it just goes back to the back burner.
Yep.
Which is fine. It's their movie. They have a reason for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously by now we're going to be very cautious before jumping on the next event as the this is it moment.
Yeah, I think we're kind of beyond that at this point.
Well, we were, and I was already starting to notice this is lingering a little too long. It's beginning to intensify rather than diminish. But the kicker for me was this morning's New York Times. I sent you an image. This is really surprising. And it's unprecedented. I mean, they've covered the other events, but not to this extent. You're looking at the entirety of the front page of the New York Times broadsheet opened up, complete, top to bottom, with the exception of just the first column, which is there's a total of 6 columns.
Yep.
They're described as column inches. And so it's just that 1/6 strip. That's the only exception. And that deals with the epic storm we just had. The rest of the newspaper, top to bottom, as well as some of the interior stuff, is about this drama in Minnesota. And there's the big headline. Minnesota and federal officials clash again over the facts of the fatal shooting. There's numerous stories. So, this is the paper of record. It always was. It was the paper of record back when the Sulzberger Mafia controlled it. And it still is the paper of record now that the Q operation controls it, because the rest of the press feeds off of this. So this is a little different, to put it mildly, from all of the previous false starts.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, I felt I should write an article about it. We still don't know where it's going to go, but it's without question of all of the previous such moves, scenes, this is the most enduring and the biggest.
Yep.
And it's fake. By the way.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, yeah, no, it is. It is.
By the way. Yeah. So don't cry for Mr. Pretty. He's in pretty good shape, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He's probably hanging out having a beer with Charlie Kirk somewhere.
Yeah, he's pretty likely one of the 60,000 man army, secret army that we've referenced God knows how many times. But that's a really interesting point, Mike, because you're right. We have seen a lot of these flare-ups that we have anticipated might lead us to the overt invocation of the Insurrection Act, but they've all sort of fizzled out. And the one that I remember the most clearly that really kicked it all off, where everybody was talking about the precipice, was back in California over the summer. You remember that one? We had that conversation. And we've, ever since they've started these mass deportations, there's been this kind of like this feeling like eventually things were really going to intensify. Now, I was taken a bit by surprise by this, because I have to admit that, my overall stance on this is that, yes, things are heating up. Yes, it does appear as if, Trump has been saying, and I'm going to pull up some of his Truth Social posts, but, essentially saying that they are stoking an insurrection there. He's been using that rhetoric. He's sending in Tom Homan. We're going to revisit a Tom Homan clip that I think is quite relevant as well. But having said all that, I've always anticipated that when we get to the Insurrection Act, when Trump finally drops the hammer, and by the way, this is something that's it's so far from being unprecedented. It's been used so many times. And by the way, Trump has been very clear and made a point to make sure that everybody understands this is something that's been used by what is it, 48% of the presidents or something like that. But what's interesting is if you go back to the Q drops, when it's mentioned as the Insurrection Act of 1807. But Q asked the rhetorical question, what president used it to save the Union? And it's been used. You recall back the Rodney King riots and things along those lines. But back at that time period, there was no conversation about saving the Union or the potential threat of civil war. So because of that, it would seem logical to me that this insurrection would have to spread to multiple different blue cities before they actually drop the hammer. It wouldn't seem to make a lot of sense to me that Trump would invoke it, and it would really just be localized to Minneapolis, because then really the effectiveness of it kind of stops there. You really want to see, and I'm curious to get your take on this as well, but you'd want to see him invoke the Insurrection Act on a kind of a broad spectrum approach where you have chaos or the optics of chaos on in all these different blue cities, particularly places like New York and California. So I think that my personal opinion is that while we're watching this really accelerate rapidly, we still have a ways to go in terms of getting to that ultimate moment where he drops the hammer.
Yeah, of course, and perhaps that's why they were having all of these prior scenes in so many different cities. Because as far as I know, the only time the Insurrection Act was ever invoked for more than just one specific location was the Civil War, which was fought almost entirely under the auspices of the Insurrection Act. Every other case, it's something in Arkansas with the schools, or Ulysses S. Grant in Louisiana with the KKK.
Yep.
Right. Bush with the Rodney King. So it's always like a specific city or parts of the state.
Right.
So that's by no means unprecedented.
Exactly.
But if you're talking about the nationwide rollout, the storm that we're anticipating, then it's got to be something more along the lines of the Civil War with multiple cities. But it will take one to spark it.
For sure. Yeah.
Is this it? I don't know, but I'm just simply saying that by far this has been the most drama surrounding any of the other prior head fakes.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And we're going to look at some evidence of that. So remember when Trump said that, I think it was a few weeks ago, where he was on Air Force One, he was asked about the Insurrection Act, and he said that it's been used by 48% of the presidents. And then he said that George Bush Sr. used it 22 times. Remember that? We watched that clip and you were going, what the heck is that all about? And then in retrospect, it kind of occurred to me that perhaps he was pointing us to one of the drops. Okay. So in drop 22, of course, very famous for talking about using the military. I mean, in this case, it's talking about the National Guard, but what former president used the military to save the republic? And what occurred exactly. So, and then of course down here, it talks about who controls the National Guard. Can the National Guard work in conjunction with the Marines? No war, no civil unrest, clean and swift. So that to me is a really important drop to visit in the context of this conversation, because yes, there has to be a spark somewhere. But that spark would seem to me to have to spread to, like I said, to many different areas around the country. So let's take a look at some of Trump's True Social posts on this. And I've got a whole bunch of them up here, and I don't really know what order they're going to be in. So let's just pop one at a time here. Okay, that's not the one I wanted to start with, I don't think. Is that the one? All right. Well, in this post, this was actually just yesterday. So Trump, this was after Tim Walz basically appealed to the president and said, you got to stop this craziness and pull ICE out of here, et cetera, et cetera. And Trump's response essentially was this. He says that is why I'm here by calling on Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and every Democrat governor and mayor in the United States to formally cooperate with the Trump administration to enforce our nation's laws rather than resist and stoke the flames of division, chaos, and violence. And then he goes on to make a list of demands. Walz and Frey should turn over all criminal illegal aliens that are currently incarcerated in state prisons and jails to federal authorities, just like other states have done, which is why we haven't seen the chaos, again, according to the optics of the movie. It's amazing what can happen when local and state authorities actually cooperate with ICE instead of having these sanctuary city stand-down policies. But then he goes on to say, so along with illegal criminals with an active warrant or known criminal history for immediate deportation, state and local law enforcement must agree to turn over all illegal aliens arrested by the local police. Local police must assist federal law enforcement, like this is what I was just talking about. And Democrat politicians must partner with the federal government to protect American citizens in the rapid removal of all criminal aliens in our country. and this is actually where he made this point. Some Democrats in places like Memphis, Tennessee, or Washington, D.C. have done so, resulting in safer streets for all. So that was his response. And then, and this was just today. He said, hold on a second, let me share that. Tom Homan. I love this guy, man. He says, I'm sending Tom Homan to Minnesota tonight. He's not been involved in that area, but knows and likes many of the people there. Tom is tough but fair, and will report directly to me. Separate. Oh, and this is key too. Separately, a major investigation is going on with respect to the $20 billion plus welfare fraud that's taken place in Minnesota, and is at least partially responsible for the violent protests going on in the streets. He's telling you. I mean, this is all manufactured. And this is again what they're trying to show everyone is this is how the Democrats operate. This is what they do. Their basic playbook is you get, you have riots, you inflame civil unrest, ultimately try to kick off a civil war to distract from the crimes that you've committed and remain in power. I mean, that was the deep state model, and it's playing out now to show the people, the public, that the Democrat Party, which of course will cease to exist when this is all said and done, RICO investigations are going on, but this is meant to shine a spotlight and get people to connect the dots. Like first we had the waste, fraud, and abuse, all of these, the quality layering centers, billions and billions of dollars, $20 billion in fraud at least. And now all of a sudden we've got riots going on in the streets, and to get people to kind of connect the dots between those two things. Because essentially what the Democrat Party needs in order to even exist is they need illegals to use as a voting block and to use as a front for all these fraudulent operations to steal taxpayer money, not to mention as a tool to galvanize all the useful idiots out there in the streets to create havoc to protect themselves. That's how they operate. And I think that's what Trump is trying to point out to everybody in this post. And then he also mentions Ilhan Omar, et cetera. So in response to this, Tim Walz calls the president. And so Trump posted about that. I'll just read through this one and then I'll turn it back over to you. He said, Governor Walz called me with the request to work together with respect to Minnesota. It was a very good call. And we actually seem to be on a similar wavelength. I told Governor Walz that I would have Tom Homan call him, and that we're looking for, and that what we are looking for are any and all criminals that they have in their possession. And, Mike, what really got my attention about all this was, I don't know if you recall, but you remember when Tom Homan was asked by a reporter, he said, the reporter said, well, why don't you go ahead and arrest the leaders of these sanctuary cities who are protecting all these illegals? And he had that big grin on his face and he said, wait till you see what's coming. Right. So I think it's really interesting to see how all of these dots are starting to connect. We're starting to see more and more progress in that direction. Anything you want to say about some of Trump's posts there?
Well, it confirms, and it's important to emphasize always, that the purpose of invoking or re-invoking the Insurrection Act, this is all replay,
right,
isn't to go after the street thugs. It's the Reds in the suites. You have the Reds in the suites and the Reds in the suites, and that's what this is really all about. Where it's ultimately going to go. What I'm expecting is at some point things get bad or out of hand, and they do the Insurrection Act, then they're going to have to identify the funders and the organizers.
That's exactly right.
And that's when you get to the deep state. Again, it's all replay, but there's no other reason to be doing this, because just to replay the arrest of street demonstrators, who cares? It's you want to get to is to show people that it's people like the Soroses and the Clinton Foundations, those type of individuals who've been funding that. And that's really critical, because historically that's something that very few people have understood. We've talked about how in the 19th century, when these spontaneous red movements would flare up, and the existing government or the monarchs would seek to put them down, but they never really got to the ultimate source. Far from it. Instead of going after people like the Rothschilds, they're getting loans from them and giving them titles of honor.
Yeah.
They never really saw who the manipulation was. That's a more recent realization, 20th century. People began to understand that it's higher up than just secret societies or even high levels of Freemasons. It goes up to the big cabal money boys.
Right.
And that's why this year is potentially really historic if this is exposed, that all of this, violence and these flash mobs, rent the mobs, all along have been engineered by respected people, many of them whose names you've never even heard of.
See, the way I look at it is that Tom Homan's coming on the scene. Waltz calls up and basically says, I want to talk to you. I want to work together and all of these things. I completely agree with you that, you go on social media and you see all these people saying, oh, things are so out of hand in Minneapolis. We got to get the Insurrection Act now before these are people who don't understand that we're watching a movie, right? And also don't understand what you just pointed out, which is we're not interested in having the Insurrection Act just so they can have the military go in there and quell the unrest. That's not the point. And that's also part of the reason why both of us agree that a lot more has to come out. The Democrat Party is a criminal organization.
Yeah.
And that really needs to be exposed. One of the things that Trump mentioned there is that we have an active investigation going on into all this fraud. So the way I see this playing out, again, it's all speculative, but that it's going to kind of die down a little bit. Trump is going to work with Waltz. They're going to come to some sort of agreement to quiet things down on the streets until the big stuff starts to come out about the fraud. And then all of a sudden it's probably going to ignite again. But I see this as being, and this might be an unpopular take. I don't know, because everybody out there just wants the Insurrection Act now. But I see this as really them preheating the oven for something that's probably going to take place a little bit later in the year, especially when the weather isn't frigid. Again, you want the optics of widespread chaos across the country, but in response to the exposure of all of the fraud. Who knows what's going to come out on the Epstein front and when it's going to happen. But even if we're just talking about the financial fraud, you want people to make the connection. The target audience has to make the connection between the reason this is happening in the streets isn't because there was a shooting involving ICE. The reason this is happening is because this is being directed by the powers that be in order to protect themselves, to cause a distraction, to cause a civil war, to do anything that they can in order to remain in power.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. So,
it's, it's all we know. We know for certain what the big picture is. But we don't know if this is going to escalate very quickly or it could go back on the back burner, but still, it still has left an impression. And then they go to the next scene. I don't know, but as I said, this has been by far the most coverage and the most drama. You've got two people, quote unquote, dead, right? I don't think anybody died in the previous flare-ups in these various cities. So now you've got people dying.
Yeah, well, they're escalating it, right?
Yeah, it's definitely up. It's another notch now. Yeah, so let's see what happens.
I still say it's premature, and that's why they're putting on this show of Waltz and Trump working together, because that provides the optics of, well, Trump doesn't actually have to invoke the Insurrection Act at this point. He's basically been saying, there's no need for that at this point. We don't need to do it. He's been dangling out there saying, I can use it, but I don't really have to use it at this point, or I don't think it's really necessary at this point. That's the way I think they're going to play this. And as the weeks and perhaps months by and more information comes out, then that we're going to see much more of an explosion in terms of this lawlessness across the country. But again, it's all for naught if the general public, the target audience, doesn't make the connection between what they're seeing and why it's actually happening. Because at this point, I don't think we're there.
Yeah, and all of the previous false starts, I dismissively refer to them as nothing burgers.
Yeah,
but they really weren't, because they each one is a new layer understanding. You see,
Yep, exactly.
and it habituates the people's thinking. So what happened in Los Angeles and Portland, it's not for naught. This builds upon it. And maybe the next one will build upon Minneapolis. You see?
Exactly.
So it's just a long process, but it does make an impact this way when you keep coming back with the same storyline.
Pattern recognition.
If a different city, every few months a different city, it just builds on itself.
Yep. And we've got the RICO investigations going on into the entirety, essentially the entirety of the Democrat Party. And those are still in their very early, again, like Mike says all the time, like you hear me say all the time, this is all replay. But in terms of the optics of the movie, this stuff is really just, it hasn't even really gotten off the ground yet. I mean, we know that it's going on, but there needs to be a lot more added on to this before. I mean, unless they decide that they're going to invoke the Insurrection Act multiple times in multiple different cities and kind of do it all piecemeal, but that's not what the Q drops seem to indicate. That once it seems to point in the direction of once they drop the hammer, everything is going to happen really fast, clean and swift. Military is going to move in. Laws have been lifted. Special operators are going to be ready to go. To put down these riots. And Q Drop 34, of course, talked about public riots being organized in order to thwart, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but to thwart the capture of senior officials. So do we really think that that's just pertaining to Minneapolis? I mean, come on, New York, California, we haven't even scratched the surface of the fraud yet. Well, I mean, maybe we've scratched the surface, but I mean, there's like a huge amount beneath the surface that hasn't even been exposed yet. So just a couple other points here to make. Actually, I have that video of Tom Holman. Let's just watch it. It's only like 15 seconds. So this was, again, this was back in May of 2025.
So the president signed an executive order just this week threatening to defund sanctuary cities for their policies. Why not just arrest the leaders who are harboring and shielding illegal aliens, actually terrorists, from deportation?
Wait to see what's coming.
So
I love that. I could watch that all day long. So that's great. And, there's been a number of other developments as well on the geopolitical stage. One of them, I just wanted to bring to your attention here. I don't know if you saw this. This is, well, first of all, I know you've heard about this, that Xi Jinping has basically eliminated all of his top military brass, this massive purge of the People's Liberation Army. And what's interesting is that these are all of these generals here who supposedly were the ones who were really pushing for an invasion of Taiwan. And, famously, Trump has said that China is going to invade Taiwan after the Olympics. A lot of people are anticipating that that might actually play out this year after the Winter Olympics. But these were all of these individuals here, including one of them, which was his childhood best friend. I think it's the guy on the bottom right, who supposedly they're saying was selling China's secrets, including nuclear secrets, to the United States. So we've got that going on the geopolitical stage. And then this as well, which I found very interesting. On February 11th, this is Mario Newfall put this out, historic summit, all 34 Western Hemisphere militaries convening on February 11th. And there he is, Raising Cane, Dan Kane. Just called for the first ever full assembly of military leaders from every nation in the Western Hemisphere. This does not happen by accident. You don't summon every military chief in the region unless you're coordinating something massive. Yeah. Drug cartels, regional realignment, all of it probably, and he goes on from there. And this is, the 34 got my attention right away just because of Drop 34, but with everything that's been playing out with the Don Road Doctrine we've talked about recently, the capture of Maduro, And now we have this historic summit of all of these Western Hemisphere powers in one place at one time, which would seem to indicate that they're gearing up for some sort of a major geopolitical event. So we've got the domestic stuff, the geopolitical, but the point being, folks, is that all of these things, while they're rapidly escalating, they still, in my view, still a lot of things have to play out before we finally get to the breaking point. Anything you want to mention there, Mike?
Yeah, that reminds me of all the flights that Derek Johnson used to track from all of these various countries. I mean, Guatemala, Nicaragua, all military planes over U.S. airspace, and that was going on in Europe. So it's an international operation where the military planes of one country just fly with impunity over the borders of another country.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So, this is all, it's almost as if it's like a new world government is in place.
Yep.
But it's not a world government. It's just a worldwide military alliance that's coordinating and working together.
Yep.
We were told in the Q posts that Russia, China, United States are partners, and they use the term coordinating against the New World Order. Well, there's a whole lot of other countries who would fall into the respective orbits of those three giants. So it's essentially the whole world, all the military powers of the world.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Remember the Saudi general saluting Trump. I mean, all of this is consistent with that.
Yep. He is Commander Trump, like you call him, right? No doubt about
Donald, the world ruler triumphs.
Yeah, he actually.
Donald is Gaelic for world ruler. Trump means to triumph over. So,
well, it's interesting. It's interesting because I was talking to Dave the last time we did a show together, and we brought up the possibility of Nessun Dorma, the sum of all fears. You remember how much we were talking about that last year, right? And it really, I think it was probably more even in 2024 before the election, because Trump was hitting those comms constantly, nonstop. It was Nessun Dorma, all the time. But now here we are, and Putin has come out and said that Greenland's none of our business. Trump has been saying that we need Greenland in order to counter Russian and Chinese, but certainly he's mentioned Russia over and over. We Russian subs, vessels all over the place in Greenland. We need to counter that by getting Greenland. Putin came out and said, go for it. We're not going to interfere. And he actually educated people. He provided a history of U.S. policy as it relates to Greenland. And the reason I mention that is because it seems increasingly unlikely that Russia and the United States are going to get involved in some sort of a World War III standoff at this point. It's almost inconceivable to think that they could twist that at this point, because Trump and Putin love each other so much. But when I saw this about China, and China, again, on the surface, we know that Xi and Putin are working with Trump, have been all along, going back to Q post 140, which you mentioned there. But China's been a lot more oppositional to everything that Trump has been doing and saying geopolitically than Putin. So now we have this major development where Xi Jinping is purging all of his top military brass. There's the big question of whether, he's been very clear that Taiwan is eventually going to reunify with China. So that I see as maybe a potential geopolitical flashpoint there for a Nessun Dorma situation.
Well, it's good. It's good optics too, because if they're scripting this as
a sum of all fear situation,
these generals are somehow want war, and Xi is getting rid of them. I think that would, that creates optics that may facilitate the peaceful merger.
Could be.
It's like, hey, Xi's a good guy. He doesn't want to deal with these nuts. He wants to do this diplomatically, right?
Yeah, that could be.
And Trump's doing what he's doing in Venezuela and Greenland. And Putin gets Ukraine, Xi gets Taiwan. Yeah. So it all, it looks like the optics, it works out perfectly.
Yeah. It looks like the tinderbox is really right here at home domestically, like we were talking about, and not so much on the geopolitical stage.
Yeah. Well, whether a Nessun Dorma scenario plays out publicly or not, the fact is it clearly did play out.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was a conspiracy to bring the United States and NATO into war against Russia and China. There's no question about that. And it's also equally self-evident that the perpetrators behind that monstrous plot have all been eliminated. So, these constant comms, they can work both ways. They're either telling us what happened or they're telegraphing what's going to be replayed.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But it surely happened. You could believe all of those people who were plotting World War III are gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the references to Sum of All Fears are particularly interesting as well, because we know that in the context of the movie, it was Israel who was really at the center of that plot to try to cause a world war between Russia and the United States. And of course, because you mentioned it several times, we thought along those lines, but would they really make it that obvious? Who knows? We're going to have to see how it plays out. But eventually, Israel's being saved for last. Is going to have to be some sort of a geopolitical incident, I would think. It could just come in the form of disclosure about 10/7, about Epstein, et cetera, that would enable the optics for the pivot against Israel. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen here? Going to see a build up to a World War III type of standoff. It doesn't seem very likely at the current moment, but anything could change. So we'll see how this all plays out. So with that said,
unless they script it as the Europeans going rogue and start some trouble.
That's interesting. Yeah.
You
because it's really the European Union. It's like Spain, the UK, Germany, Norway, all these countries basically saying we don't want any part of the board of peace. They've
right.
I mean, all of our European allies, who we've always considered to be our strongest allies, right? They're the ones who are saying, no, we don't want any part of the board of peace. And then we've got our quote unquote enemies who are coming to the table. Do you agree with that assessment, by the way, that I mentioned a little bit earlier, that this is ultimately going to replace the UN?
Yeah, I do. And I don't know, it was your show and Dave's show, we were speculating as to whether the UN will continue to exist as a talking society, harmless, toothless, or whether it'll be replaced altogether.
Yeah.
This leads me to believe maybe they'll just get rid of it altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, either way works, but one thing is for sure, the United Nations is out of business for all intents and purposes.
Oh, yeah.
And that is so huge. That's what all of the maneuvers of the intrigue of the 20th century was all about.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 world wars specifically for setting up the framework of that world government. That was the United Nations, which peaked during the COVID hoax. We got a tiny taste of what they had in store for us, of what the world would be like from the world government.
Yep.
All of that stuff, all of those directives and mandates flowed down from the WHO, which we're out of now, which is part of the UN.
Mm-hmm.
All of that crap, the 6 feet, the shelter in place, the shutting down of the businesses. I mean, that was horrible. I still can't believe we tolerated that. And it would have been a whole lot worse had they launched something like that while Hillary was president, because then you would have had the quarantine camps, mandatory vaccines after 5 years, et cetera. But you got a small taste of what the New World Order was. And that's all gone now. There's no way that ever they could achieve something like that. It's completely obliterated.
Yep.
So, again, for anyone who even is thinking that, nothing has happened in this world, I mean, the entire satanic New World Order has been obliterated.
Yep.
And that's just the stuff we could see visibly, tangibly. All of these institutions just falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We're waiting on the real fireworks. We want to see the arrests and executions and the golden age and all that. We have to be patient with that. But if you focus just on the stuff that's tangible, it's just huge. When you take a historical perspective on it.
Yep. Totally. Totally. I mean, I don't know how anybody could look at the geopolitical stage right now and think that the bad guys are in control. I mean, we could talk here for hours and hours about things that would never happen, and file it under that category of things that would never happen if the deep state was actually still in power. The establishment of the Board of Peace, which is ultimately going to, at bare minimum, preempt the United Nations, if the United Nations even is going to continue to exist. The fact that that is even being rolled out, and much less during Davos, which of course is like their holy event every single year. He goes into the belly of the beast, the den of the vipers, and he comes out basically saying we've got a deal to annex Greenland and we've got the Board of Peace ratified, and they announce it at Davos. He's the only one who gets the red carpet treatment, which of course, True Stormy Joe did a great decode on that, talking about the Q post that referenced the red carpet events, and also the gun comms from Q, the boom, boom, boom. Remember the post that looks like a gun, tying together all those different pieces, even going back to Butler. Highly recommend. I actually shared that the other day. But in any event, in the interest of time, we'll leave it there because we got a lot of things we got to cover tonight. So let's go ahead and pull up our slides, and Mike's going to take it away as he does so well every week. So this is going to be our conversation about Iran, and it really dovetails nicely with what we were just talking about in terms of the geopolitical stage, Israel, etc. So take it away, Mike.
The chairman of peace wants to hold talks with Iran. And it's interesting, he called it the Board of Peace. It's sort of like he's mocking them, because the whole pretext for the first the League of Nations and then the United Nations and all of the various offshoot agencies which sprouted from that, it's always peace, 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 peace. You know, back in Bolshevik days, it was mir, the Russian word for peace. You know, it reminds me of those aliens from when Mars attacks. I don't know if you've ever seen that silly movie.
Oh, yeah.
They're blowing up the world, but they on their loudspeakers, they're blaring, "We come in peace." Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. It's sort of like that.
Yeah.
The UN has not brought peace. They bring war. So he calls it the Board of Peace. And he announces this in Davos. And this, to me, was really telling. He also announced that, here's the headline here from New York Times, New York Times. Trump claims Iran wants to talk. And we'll talk, as he rolls out the Board of Peace. Mm-hmm. And I am convinced that, as was the case with North Korea, we've been in communication with Iran and the Iranian military all along for the last 10 years. Iran is part of that alliance with Russia and China. Totally. They have joint war games every year.
Yep.
Okay?
No doubt.
And they are the boss now. They are the protector. Think of the Middle East now as a protectorate under the protection of these three powerful nations. So, how does that fit into the narrative that Trump is a Zionist? Well, he pulled the United States out of the region, and he left Russia, China, and Iran in charge of peace in that region. Does anyone think there's going to be a greater Israel? It's an impossibility. It's over. Who killed the Greater Israel Project? Trump, Q, the White Hats. Yep. So, but I have never believed that there would be, in spite of that Q post, which I'll mention later, that there would be a regime change in Iran. And I could end up being wrong, but I think if it is, that will be some kind of a stunt. But already he's saying we want talks with Iran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it's really more about, and I know you're going to get into this throughout the course of the article, but it's more about removing the pockets of CIA, Mossad, deep state elements inside of Iran, which, by the way, has already been done, but replaying that for the general public,
everything's being replayed. Yeah,
getting rid of these. But when you're talking about whether it's with Maduro, whether it's any of these hot spots, Iran, Ukraine, Taiwan to an extent, Colombia, Mexico, all these places have for years, for decades, had deep state entrenchments that needed to be rooted out. And so I think a lot of what we're witnessing right now in the geopolitical stage is the replay of that to an extent. I mean, to a degree, to what degree they're going to actually reveal what occurred, or whether they're going to come up with a new narrative to explain it all, remains to be seen. But that's ultimately what's happening right now, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's no exaggeration to say that in every nation on this planet, I don't know how many nation states are there, 160, 170, whatever.
Yeah.
In even the most obscure, tiny state, there's a deep state tentacle that penetrated that state
Oh, sure.
through the NGOs. And, you know, once you go in there with the Yankee dollar, you don't even have to recruit, just like wave it around and the whores will come to you.
Right.
And that entrenchment literally existed in every nation on earth. So you can imagine the tedious nature of unraveling, uprooting that kind of monster.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. In every single nation on earth, they had their tentacles, but not every one of those nations was being used as a geopolitical pawn to try to start some sort of a war, to drum things up in terms of that, in that respect. Unlike, you know, I mean, Taiwan has long been a hot spot. Ukraine, of course, long been a hot spot. And then, of course, and then in the Western Hemisphere, you've got all of these South American nations. You got Cuba, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, that are all involved with the cartels. So they all have different roles. But then you go to these other countries, like, I mean, I was having a conversation with Ricardo Bossi, and he said, you know, and I mentioned a lot of these countries as hotspots. He said, yeah, but they're also in Australia and other places. And I said, well, of course they are, but they weren't being used as springboards to try to create the next war. So there's kind of a distinction to be made there, but absolutely.
They'll only activate a war when they need to. They'll trigger a war with a neighboring state. And indeed, during Obama days of the Asian pivot, Philippines, Vietnam, Australia were all being harnessed for that purpose of encircling China, eventually going to war there.
Yeah.
So when they want a war, you know, they can play that card, but the real objective is to control the governments of every single nation on earth. And it's not always a total control. I mean, there may be some states where they maybe had 30% control. Or you have other nations like Europe, for example, which was 100% global control. But the presence was there in every nation, and now it's being dismantled. NGOs have been expelled. They're being expelled even by the tiniest, weakest nations have all of a sudden found the courage to tell the NGOs to pack their shit and get out. Well, where are they getting that courage from? Who's backing them? Well, we know. And here's another headline from the New York Times. And these are both related, these stories. Trump's Board of Peace would have a global scope, but one man in charge. And the subheadline reads, the initiative is the latest example of the president's dismantling of the post-World War II international system and building a new one with himself at the center. Telling you right there, the post-World War II international system, that's the New World Order. It was built on the ashes of World War II. He's dismantled. What have I been saying all along? What was the theme of the bad war? That's what the war was about. It was about this. Was it about Hitler wanting to go into Poland, right? And then building a new one with himself at the center. So the New York Times is telling you, Trump, Q operation, the International Military Alliance, they have obliterated the New World Order, and they are now the order.
That's actually a really interesting sub-headline right there. I mean, they lay it all out there. But they do very cleverly, though, with himself at the center, because that's going to be interpreted by all their libtard readers as like, you know, Trump's trying to be you know, a dictator and so. But he actually has said, he says, you know, sometimes you have to be a dictator. Sometimes you need a dictator. And he's telling you, he's in charge of the world military right now.
Oh, yeah. Now they're blackpilling the hell out of their readership. Let me tell you, with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And again, I said this 100 times. In spite of the obligatory street cred stuff, you read these articles; they're remarkably objective and neutral, at least by historical New York Times standards. Mm-hmm. Believe me, there's no shrill shrieking. They're just kind of laying it out there. Yeah, Trump rules the world now. What can we do?
What can we do except complain about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they'll quote some obscure academic, you know, he's dismantling everything that was created in post-World War II.
Yeah. Well, they all call it the liberal world order too. I find
liberal world order. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really synonymous with the New World Order.
Yeah.
As we know, and super interesting, super interesting. And like you mentioned, the EU is going rogue. I don't know if you saw Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, come out and say, if Europe thinks that they can actually defend themselves without the help of the United States, keep dreaming.
Yeah.
So like you mentioned, the whole possibility of Europe going rogue, that's seems like it's on the table. But all right, so past presidents, let's talk about.
Well, again, we have this total inversion of the way business used to be run in this country, in this world. Past presidents, they all talked peace as they secretly plotted war. Yeah. Trump, as we've seen time and time and time again, he talks war and he blusters about bombs and armadas and Rocket Man, Fire and Fury, all that stuff. And time again, we later learned that he's in back channel communications and he's plotting peace. Yeah. There's been no war, just peace breaking out all over the place. And it's a total inversion. And there's a reason that he does that. Well, there's two reasons. Initially, he did this to keep the fake news and the traitor Republicans and the neocons off his back. It's like, okay, you want me to threaten North Korea and Syria and Iran? Sure, I'll do it. And that totally shuts them up. Okay. Now he no longer has to play that game because he's in such a position of control and dominance, but he's still doing it. Most recently with Iran. Why is that? Well, we're going to get to that for the real reason he's doing this. Mm-hmm. But let's have a look at these historical presidents of these peace-loving U.S. presidents. All of these people were featured in our series on Cabal presidents, you'll recall. And I could produce voluminous receipts to back up what I'm going to say here. But for every one of these men spoke eloquently about peace and their love of peace. Isn't that something? Woodrow Wilson in 1916 ran for re-election on the slogan. You can see the campaign buttons from back then. He kept us out of war. Even after Lusitania, he kept us out of war. It was peace, peace. We must remain neutral. There's a reason. I won't get into that. You can read the Bad War. There's a reason why he delayed getting us into World War I.
I think that's going to come out in your historical piece because I read the article.
That's right. Yeah, we will revisit that.
Yep.
But I mean, you read the text of his speeches, and this is what I kind of specialize in doing is going back original source documents. Peace, 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 peace. The whole while he's absolutely intending to drag us into World War I.
Yep, satanic inversion really is
totally and projection. Mm-hmm. FDR, another one. We played the video clip of his performance that he gave before Congress and the nation the day after Pearl Harbor, which was totally provoked and engineered by his administration. But he shows up, he's got the black armband, and he says, we were at peace with Japan, and we were in meetings, and they did this to us. And the whole buildup, his re-election campaign in 1940 was peace, peace, peace. We are not going to war. I'll say it again and again because there's people who understood what was going on. They were the Anons of the day. Charles Lindbergh, the America First Committee, the Mothers Movement, it was called. So he had to respond to them because they were very vocal and numerous and active. And so he just said, peace, peace, peace. Not going to be any war. I'm working for peace, peace, peace. Harry Truman was another one. Spoke about peace. We need the United Nations. This is the question of our time. How do we abolish war? Peace, peace, peace. Well, he got us into the Korean War. And, Korean War is not as simple as North Korea just woke up one day and attacked South Korea. I mean, there were a lot of, well, first of all, who divided Korea to begin with? That was FDR, just a few years earlier at Yalta. For no reason at all, they invited the Soviets into Asia. So you guys occupy North Korea, we'll occupy South Korea. Yeah, that ended up very well. All right. Mm-hmm. So those are the creators of the Korean War, FDR, and then he died shortly after, and then Truman What the hell did you bring the Soviet Union and Stalin into North Korea for? And and by the way, he went to the United Nations for authorization for war. So the Korean War, another 50, 60,000 American boys dead, was fought completely under the authority of the United Nations. And it never ended. It was just a peace. There was no peace treaty. It was just a ceasefire, which any future president could have activated at any time. And thanks to Donald Trump, that was finally deactivated. But he's another one, peace lover. LBJ in 1964, he based his entire campaign, after having been part of the clique which murdered JFK, by the way. That was 1963. When in 1964, he's running for president in his own right against the Honorable Barry Goldwater. He's a good man. Mm-hmm. And he destroyed Goldwater with a barrage of TV ads accusing Goldwater of wanting to start a war, which is totally untrue. And there's a famous Daisy ad. They show a little girl picking daisies, and she's going 1, 2, 3, and then it transitions into a scary countdown of someone doing a countdown for the dropping of a detonation of a bomb. And you have a big mushroom cloud, and then the girl looks like she's being vaporized. Yeah. They ran those ads to destroy Goldwater. And he spoke of peace.
I think we showed that once. Yeah. That seems to be.
We did. Yeah, really sick. Had to be the nastiest, most libelous political ad in American history. It's disgusting. It scared the shit out of a lot of normies. They really came to be fearful of Barry Goldwater. And LBJ won in a landslide in no small measure due to those kind of attacks. He was talking peace, peace, peace. Well, his first full year in his second term, we know that story, the Tonkin Gulf hoax, the Vietnam War, right? And there you have Bush, another one. He spoke about peace until 9/11, and then he played the same type of offended innocent party that FDR did. They hate us for our freedom. We wanted peace.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's what they all do. They provoke, they set the stage for war.
Yeah.
And their public faces, we don't want war. We're doing everything we can to avoid it. Yeah. And now you've got Trump, who's completely flipped the paradigm, flipped the script, So it's like, I mean, is it I think we can all agree, Mike, it's much better to be misled into peace than it is to be misled into war, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And by the way, North Korea, since we're on the subject, they're now starting to drum that up as well. It was just a breaking report. I think it came out, I want to say yesterday. The Pentagon is now warning that North Korea's nuclear forces are rapidly developing. They're increasing in capability and size, and they now pose a clear and direct nuclear threat to U.S. territory. So,
that's
yet another factor there. But again, we all know what really happened with Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump when
it's
they
the
met.
Movie. Yep.
The movie. So just thought I'd throw that out there. But okay, let's go to our next panel here.
So now here's Trump, just the opposite. No wars under Trump. We're in his third term now. And even the proxy wars are fake.
They're all fake. Yeah. And certainly there's no boots on the ground, not the type of wars that the cabal gave us. My goodness. In Afghanistan and Iraq, most recently after 9/11, but the other ones you mentioned as well. Korea.
And you realize since World War I, up until the escalator ride, with the exception of the 1920s, the United States has been at perpetual war or proxy war.
Yep.
With hardly any interruption, maybe a year or so here and there.
Right.
Okay, it's really incredible. And now here we are, no wars and no proxy wars.
Yep. And you still have the black pillar saying that Trump is starting all these new wars. It's absolutely incredible.
It is, yeah. He's going to start another war for Israel against Iran.
Just haven't figured it out yet, but that's all right. That's why we're
But
here.
like this is the kind of stuff. I mean, you're looking at these images here. This is tangible. This isn't stuff that we have to decode or decipher, right? Or break down cryptic communications
Or speculate about.
Look, just if you're just a thinking everyday normie, how can you not look at something like this? Or how can you look at something and not be deeply impressed? And did the Korean War? I grew up with that.
Yep.
You know, every year there was like something. It was that constant specter of a potential world war situation between the United States and China and Korea.
Yep.
Saudi Arabia, he's doing the sword dance. No U.S. president could get away with that. Israel would go nuts. You know, even though at varying times Israel has had like a business alliance with Saudi Arabia, they do not like the idea of the United States getting too close to any Arab nation. When Reagan sold or he enabled the sale of fighter jets to Saudi Arabia, for example, the Israel lobby went crazy back in the 80s.
Yep.
So there he is doing the sword dance, crossing over into North Korea, shaking hands with Kim Jong-un. Here he is with Putin in the soccer ball. We know how close they are.
They've been talking about that on Fox News.
Yeah. Again, what, recently?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Gutfeld, and I think it was on Gutfeld. Yeah, but they were talking about, I just have this theory that, that Putin passed them some very interesting information in that soccer ball. I have the clips buried somewhere in my head.
Interesting. Yeah.
But they're talking about it. They're talking about it right on Fox News. Yep.
And there he is with Xi. Xi visited Mar-a-Lago, and then Trump was permitted to visit the Forbidden City. He was given almost a hero's welcome. They love him in Asia because they understand what a Korean War would have entailed.
Yep.
And, when Obango left office, I mean, that was he had the stage set. He had it teed up for the satanic witch to kick off World War III. He had China encircled with the Asian pivot, and then you had the troubles in Asia. And you have George Soros. I'll show you the article. I have it. 2016, Obama's last year as president, George Soros wrote an op-ed piece talking about the possibility of World War III. Mm-hmm. Okay, making it seem like he's just an objective observer and he's warning about it. Okay, believe me, when these characters make those kind of warnings, it's lot like Jake.
It's kind of like Bill Gates warning about the next pandemic, right?
Right. Or Jacob Schiff in 1906 warning about a crash, which came in 1907. Or Paul Warburg in 1928 warning about a crash, which came in 1929.
Yep.
This is a long history of this stuff. And then when the stuff happens, they come off looking like prophets and geniuses. No, they're the ones engineering it. Boy, I'm telling you, we were on the precipice of hell on earth.
Just look at those four pictures, and that'll give you an idea of what Trump prevented.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about World War III, mutually assured destruction. Yeah. Not coming back from that.
And imagine knowing this with absolute certainty, as I did on election eve in 2016. I almost went to bed crying that night. I didn't stay up to see the results. I thought, well, come on, they'll just manufacture whatever fake votes they need. Trump's not going to win. I wish I know that the military was at work.
I wish I could have known you back in your black pill days, man. Just to see the contrast,
I have all of those articles. I can dig them up in the archive. Yeah. It's amusing when I read them now.
Yeah. Well, every now and then we revisit them because it's it's a great barometer of how far we've come and what we were spared. Yeah. And you were dialed into all of it at a time when a lot of us didn't have a clue. So, yep.
So here is Trump's method of operation. With regards to what has just happened in Iran. So remember I said he talks war because he has to neutralize his opposition. Well, that's no longer the case, but he still just did it with Iran. Why? Well, here's what I believe. Step one, the White Hats gave the green light to the quote unquote rebels within Iran to rise up. The U.S. has your back, the dupes are told. And this, evidently, these people, the lower levels, do not understand that the CIA and Mossad is under new management now. Okay. But those networks still exist and they still need to be flushed out. So if Iran is hooked up with China and Russia, it means that Trump they're all part of the club.
Yep.
Step two, the fifth column traitors, believing that regime change is coming, confidently show their cards and they turn out in the streets. Now, this is not to say that everybody who opposes the existing government is a bad person, an evil person, or a traitor, but you have to look at the big picture here. This fifth column has been organized and funded by CIA and Mossad for their purposes. They don't give a damn about the Iranian people. Okay?
Yep.
Step three, this is key. Trump threatens to attack Iran if they mistreat the spontaneous protesters. And this goes back to this stuff in Minnesota, this tactic, the spontaneous mobs who turn out. That is always 100% of the time an indicator, okay, of an unseen hand. So this emboldens the people, so-called, even more. As the black pillars scream that Trump is serving the Jews. Every time.
Yep.
So what happens next? The Iranian government cleans up the last of the traitorous agents who have revealed themselves. So all of these networks continue to exist. So this is a deep cleaning that they're doing. And we hear the news about the mass arrest. They're saying all these people were killed. I don't know if that's true. But one thing is for sure, these people have been crushed. And it's the agent provocateurs they're after, not the common man.
Do you think the cleanup process is active right now, or we're just watching replay here?
That's a good question that I've thought about. I happen to think there's still some mop-up work being done.
That's a pretty good bet. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Because you have to remember, when they're taking out the top people, they're not announcing to the mid-levels and the low levels, hey, they're gone. They don't know. You understand? So
they're all compartmentalized.
Yeah, because if they come to get wind of that, they'll just go back deeper underground, and the intention is to flush them all out.
Yep.
So I happen to think there's still mop-up work being done, which might be part of the reason for this delay of the storm.
Could be.
And some of this mop-up work could even be domestic. Upper levels, I have no doubt. Your big boys, your Rothschilds, your Soros, even down to your Clintons and your Obama, they're gone. I'm absolutely certain of it.
Yep.
But you want to get rid of all the scum, even on the lower and mid levels. It's a deep cleaning.
Yep.
These are cancer cells. You want to get everyone.
Totally.
Step 4, the Iranian government cleans up the traitors. Step 5, the Iranians offer to have talks with Trump. Step 6, Trump announces his openness to the talks. You talk about a rug pull.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And confirming my analysis here are a series of mainstream media headlines. Let's have a look here. Okay, Reuters, Trump urges Iranians to keep protesting, saying help is on its way. This is remarkably similar to what happened in 1956 when the traitor Eisenhower administration kind of gave a green light to the anti-communist rebels of Hungary to rise up. And they were confident. And they overthrew the communist government of Hungary. Then he rug pulls them and they give a green light to the Soviet Union to come back in. So everybody has shown their cards. Okay. This seems very similar to me. So he tells them, go down the street. This is your moment. Help is on the way.
I get you. Okay, so that
Right.
that activates all of the deep state elements to show their hand because they think that a military strike is imminent, and
And
that
they think that the U.S. has got their back.
and
And
they okay.
this regime is not going to be able to restrain the pressure. They're not going to dare hurt us in any way. Okay, so that's what they're thinking. So you talk about smoking out the rats.
Okay. Yeah.
Reminds me of the DeSantis operation when they had that fake split during the so-called presidential primaries. Smoked everybody out. It was anti-Trump, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
Here's another headline, NBC News. The protests in Iran appear to have slowed as Khomeini claims Trump personally encouraged the unrest. Of course he encouraged it. And he's probably on the phone with Khomeini himself, encouraging it. Now look at this next headline, Sky News. Trump backed off Iran regime after encouraging public protests. There's your red pill. Okay, right there. So it's not something I'm deducing or inferring. It's obvious what happened here. And now here's the kicker. Time magazine. He doesn't care about us. Iranian protesters say they were betrayed by Trump. So there it is. Ultimate smoke about rug pull operation. And these are not, forget about like the innocent dupes who turn out. What they're looking for is the agent provocateurs, the ones who take orders and take money from outside intelligence agencies to
So
Iran.
in order for this smoke out operation to work, correct me if I'm wrong, the deep state elements in Iran have to believe that Khomeini is on their side, right?
No, the deep state elements? No, they think they're toppling Khomeini.
Maybe I got a little bit mixed up in your.
Yeah, I mean the objective, the Mossad objective, is to overthrow the Iranian government, and the mullahs and Khomeini. And
I see. And okay, so Trump
democracy.
makes it appear as if he's on their side,
Right?
but he's actually
He's
working.
like, rise up, get rid of that Khomeini guy. We got your back.
All right, yeah.
And then he turns around and says, "Yeah, we're going to have talks."
Okay, all right.
Right.
Now I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's move on here. What do we got next?
So that's
that's
that's the reason for the switch them up this time. So it had nothing to do with appeasing, neocons or getting the media off his back like it did in the past. This has all the indicators of a smoke 'em out cooperative operation.
Okay.
Remember,
now
Iran, Russia, and China, they're like this. So I always felt it was kind of incongruent, all of this anti-Iranian rhetoric from Trump. And here's where it really gets deep. I think this really explains that Q post. And I sent you that. We put that up. Because remember, part of the Q post, part of the purpose is also putting out disinformation for the bad guys. So you see something like this, Q post 1943, watch Iran, something incredible is about to happen. Hassan Rouhani, the good people of Iran have the power, fight for your freedom. So was Q giving out a disinformation signal to its enemies that, although we're not on the deep state side, we want a regime change in Iran too. I don't know, because this post never made sense to me, because Trump, Q, the White, they're not about regime change and doing these fake revolutions. They're not about that. But certainly, if you were trying to deceive your enemies, a post like this makes a lot of sense. I would be very, very, very surprised if the Iranian government was overthrown. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's why I was questioning that, because I've never really been clear about where Khomeini stands. Is he a deep state puppet? Is he a cabal aligned guy, or is he actually just a thorn in the side of an actual thorn in the side of the deep state cabal. And I've always been a little bit unclear about that, which is why I was questioning the logistics there of the smoke out operation. But it makes a lot. I mean, certainly the subversive forces, the Mossad, the CIA, it would seem to suggest that because they're pushing so hard for regime change in Iran to get rid of Khomeini, that Khomeini's actually not one of them.
Yeah,
right? That he's at, maybe not the greatest guy.
No,
in the world.
the Mossad wanted him out, and Khomeini is just the spiritual leader of Iran. I mean, I guess you could think of him as the I don't know, the equivalent of the Pope, right? He's not the actual day-to-day government or politics of Iran.
Right.
Okay, they have their own president and so on.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they've always been. I mean, they support Hezbollah. Okay, they're a great force to be reckoned with by Israel. Israel has always considered Iran an enemy, even though they don't share a border. Israel has always understood that if we're to pursue this greater Israel project and expand in the region, it's going to bring Iran's not going to go for that.
Oh yeah,
and Iran has been the main arming agent of the Hezbollah in Lebanon. And when the Israelis went into southern Lebanon some years back, they got their asses kicked by Hezbollah. They're good fighters and they got Iranian weapons. Mm-hmm. So that's the problem with Iran. Okay, I mean, forget about you got the domestic situation there. You've got people who are anti the Islamic regime, and you've got people who are for it. What can you do? So many countries have political divisions like that. I'm looking at the bigger picture in the region of the Greater Israel Project. It's simply not going to happen with that regime in power.
Yeah,
and that's why there's been so much subversion trying to get rid of it, which ain't going to happen. I mean, they're hooked up with Russia and China, and I'm sure that Trump's people are on the phone with Iran's people. Remember that fake bombing last year? That didn't do anything.
No.
It was nonsense. But if you're part of this subversive network in Iran, you see something like that, you think, yeah, Trump's got our back. So,
mm-hmm.
so that's what seems like it's going on.
Very interesting. He's making it seem as if that he's on the side of the deep state elements in Iran, only to smoke them out because he's secretly working with Khomeini. That's a great way to describe that. I think that's a really solid thesis. I mean, again, and I'd always question that the elements in Iran. What you said about Israel and the opposition between Israel and Iran for a long time, I just considered that to be deep state theater as a way of trying to provoke, to use that not genuine opposition, but actually to use that as a way to provoke World War III to break out in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, fantastic job, Mike, as per usual. So why don't we go straight to the source here? We do this every week for those of you who are new to Mike King. Obviously, you can tell this guy is truly amazing, but we like to point you in the direction of his website, realnewsandhistory.com, so that he can kind of guide folks along here. The Mike King operation is steadily expanding, but we like to start here with his great website, realnewsandhistory.com. Fake history is the fake news that has passed into the rear view mirror. And I say it every week. This is a primary source for me. I check it every day. I mean, I know I'm going to be seeing Mike once a week anyway, but just for me to kind of get my finger on the pulse of everything that's happening, I go straight to Mike King's webpage. So with that, Mike, let me turn it over to you. Talk a little bit about how folks can get their hands on your books, your Rumble channel, Mike King University. Lay it out for us.
Okay. Well, please bookmark realnewsandhistory.com. The site is very user-friendly, and there is a ton of free content. Just navigate it. There's so many free articles. And what you really want is to go deeper and get the books. These are mainly history books, 34 in all. If you ever thought history was boring, it's because they don't teach it right and they're concealing things from you. But it's incredible drama and intrigue. You click on Mike King University, Okay, see that offer there? $29 for all 34 of my books and PDFs, soon to be 35, and that will be added on into the collection that you get automatically. So but this is what you want for $29. It's an absolute steal. 34 books covering everything from, you name it, French Revolution, Napoleon, the subversive movements of the 19th century, U.S. Civil War, World War I, World War II, all the way up to the present day. I got a debunking book on Darwinism, a book on Joe McCarthy, and these are all large print, richly illustrated. When you read my books, it's more like watching a video than a book, and they're relatively short. Some of them are a little longer, 300 something pages, but most of them are in the sweet spot of 100 to 150 large print pictures. I just give you what you really need to get a fundamental understanding of the subject. You'll love these books. So if you haven't already, pick up this package. If you prefer, if you're old school, you like a physical book in hand, you can also send a request in through my books or PDFs page. Whatever books you want. If you get 4 or more, it's 10% off. I send you an invoice. I've also got an Amazon page, some, but not all. Most of these books are also available at my Amazon page, which author page is Mike King or Mike S. King. And those first 3 are absolute essentials. Those are the most, people often ask me, what order should I read your books? And I say, start with Crash Course 9/11, Inside Job. And I'm saying this from the perspective of a normie. If you want to, if you're kind of new to this, or more importantly, if you're trying to introduce this information to somebody who's new or skeptical, if you start with Crash Course 9/11, Inside Job, let me tell you, 1 hour read, tons of pictures, absolutely impossible to still believe in the official story of 9/11 after you read the book. And why is that so important? Because I call that the hook. Because once you accept that the official story of 9/11 is bullshit from start to finish, you logically want to go to the next step. Okay, who's behind it and why? What else have they done? And that takes you to Crash Course NWO, 250 years of global conspiracy in just 1 hour. Again, it gives you a solid framework of who these people are and what they've been doing to us for the last 2-3 centuries. And then, of course, the happy ending. This is what we talk about, the Q-tard stuff. The secret plan to save humanity. And it explains how the military all along, all of this, we thought they were sleeping. No, they were taking notes, right? They were taking names.
Yeah.
Now they're kicking ass. So these 3, and these are all like 14 and change each. If you got Amazon Prime, the shipping is free. So you definitely want to start there. But little by little, a lot of people are getting all of my books. By the way, if you want the whole shebang in physical format, it's just $475. Just send me an email, and I'll send you a special invoice for that. That's a very deep discount. So this is the type of books that need to be in our schools. Hopefully they will one day, because boy, were we bamboozled. You think the news is fake? All right, history is just as fake.
Talk about a barometer that the world has changed. If Mike King's books start to show up in high school curriculums, we'll know we've officially arrived, right?
Yeah, we're away from that, but
no, we are.
I do believe that I know that more and more people at least are receptive to this type of stuff, even though they might remain skeptical. They'll take a look. Mm-hmm. But back in the day, forget about it, man. They just shut you down. They wouldn't even consider it. Mm-hmm. And as this Q operation, as elements of it become more public, that is my hope and prayer that everybody's minds will be so fundamentally altered that they'll actually desire these books, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Once you get red pilled, you get hungry for the truth. That's what I constantly remind everybody. And that's the experience of each and every one of us. You know, the minute we awaken and you start to take, like you say, that first milligram of red pill, it's addictive. Yeah. You just want more and more and more of it. And that's really what we need. We need to get people to get thirsty for the truth. And once that happens, once the normies develop that, it's all over from there.
Yeah.
That is the Great Awakening. And I don't believe we're very far off from it right now. So let's talk a little bit here, Mike, about your Rumble page. I know I can see it's continuing to grow. We like to mention this as well. Every week, we're now up to 24.3 thousand followers, which is amazing. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about the video series you've been working on?
Well, I'm just wrapping that up. I've only got one episode left. Can you believe it? I started in the summer, completed 37 episodes, durations of 30 to 45 minutes. And I actually start with events that occurred in the late 1600s, the Cromwell Revolution in Britain.
Yep.
And I go decade by decade throughout the centuries. And it's just, I cover a major event. I show you a picture. I do a little show and tell. And it's like boom, 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 boom. And these are very easily digestible. You want to binge watch these in order. And you will clearly see, without a doubt, the continuity of this thing. I mean, for example, you see the Rothschild brothers combining to finance the British for the purpose of taking out Napoleon. That's 1815-ish, okay? And then today we see pictures of the Rothschilds with Hillary Clinton and Obama, or more recent times. So that's like an amazing continuity. And the Q post mentioned, for example, the Rothschilds many times. And there's one post about how generational wealth just multiplies and multiplies and multiplies over the ages and buying more and more political power. So then your mind is blown when you see just how vast and how deeply rooted this problem was.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's good to keep you grounded because as tedious and tiresome as the movie is, consider what they're uprooting without violence, or at least violence that we're not seeing. I'm sure behind the scenes people have been whacked.
Oh, absolutely.
There's probably been shootouts and stuff. Who knows?
Oh,
but yeah, you definitely want to watch this series. And I also do other brief videos on various other subjects. So my Rumble channel, just look for Mike King, put that in a search engine. And you'll see a bunch of Patriot videos, but above that, you'll see the channels. You want to follow my channel.
Yep. If
you're not already doing so, please follow me. Even if you watch my videos anyway on your own, if you become a follower, the higher the number, the more credibility is bestowed upon the site. And this way we grow more. So I'm very excited about the Rumble channel because it's enabling me to reach new people. Some people just don't like to read, and some people prefer to read. But so now I'm doing both. Like I haven't cut back on my writing at all, and I do the videos. And you can access all this stuff on my front page of the website.
Yeah, you've just kicked it into high gear. Yeah, but here it is, folks. Mike's Rumble channel. You just click on that little link right there. It'll take you right to his channel. Make sure you're following him. Make sure you're doing everything that you possibly can to support his work. I rank it right up at the top of anybody out there in the truth community. I mean, what Mike King does is unique. And that is normally, Mike, I could sing your praises for you, but I like to hear you lay it out. I mean, what you do is something that fulfills a very unique niche. And if you could just maybe explain that to folks who are out there who might be new to your work in terms of connecting the history to where we're at in the Q operation.
Yeah, I weave together history being defined as something as contemporary as 10 years ago, or also 200 years ago, or 100 or 50. And I weave it together with the modern contemporary events. And it's like I'm not stretching to kind of make history fit the news. You see the unmistakable common thread running through the decades. And it's mind-blowing when you look at history this way, because we're the product of where we came from. And I'm not talking about ancient Roman or Greek history. That's all interesting too. But pretty much everything in the last 200, 250 years has been like the lower floors of a building that they've been building. So the more you understand it, the clearer you see the modern day, and the more effective you become as a truther. So it's so essential. I mean, there's people that, other people that engage in what I call correctionist history. and then you got people who do the news, and then you got people who do the Q. I put it all together, and that's what's unique.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you're the only.
when you understand that Q is undoing stuff that was done 100, 150 years ago.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think that you're at least to my knowledge, you're the only non that's actually doing correctionist history. You're the only Q-tard who's actually out there who knows the real history and can connect the dots. Like I say, nobody else is doing it. And even if there are people out there who are dabbling in that, nobody has achieved the level of excellence as Mike King has. So make sure that you buy his books, folks. And again, he doesn't like to mention this, but I mention it for him. I mean, he does this as a career. He's been awake for over 30 years, but he's been doing this professionally as his sole source of income for, I think, 14, 15 years now.
14 years now, yeah.
14 years. Okay. So very important, folks. If you like what you see here, and I know you do, this is a weekly favorite for my audience. Make sure that you're supporting Mike, doing everything you can. And in the process, I mean, sure, you can make a donation to his site. There are lots of different ways that you can support what he does, but the best way is to get your hands on his books and booklets, because that way you can share the information with everybody out there. And as I always remind folks, the reason that we were awakened early was not just so that we could understand everything for ourselves, but that we could actually share that information, especially once the floodgates open. And the same people who fueled you for years and didn't want to hear a damn thing you had to say are going to be running to you for information. And this provides you with the tools to be able to help them. And that's really, really important. So you're getting that on the one hand. You're also supporting Mike King. It's a no-brainer. He makes it super affordable. I mean, $29 for his entire brain trust, folks. I mean, it's the deal of the century, honestly. I mean, it's truly something that you don't want to miss. So with that said, let's go ahead and actually, before we pivot back into our slides, I did find that clip that I was mentioning earlier about on Fox News. So let's just watch that real quick. I think you'll get a kick out of this. This was about 10 days ago on January 16th. Oh, that's.
Handed off a soccer ball? Yes. And people have wondered what was in the soccer ball. Because the NSA and rogue CIA agents, they surveil everything he says and does. So the only way to pass secret messages is through objects. So I'm betting that behind that Nobel Peace Prize plaque is a thumb drive. And the thumb drive has on it the location of Maduro's secret blue diamonds.
So the volume is very low, Mike. Could you even hear that? Yeah.
Bits and pieces.
What's that?
Bits and pieces. I didn't catch the ending.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the volume was so low. I apologize for that. But, he was talking about, this was Gutfeld's show, and I'm not sure who this guy is, to be honest with you. But he was saying that, he's been speculating a lot about, Putin passing Trump information in the soccer ball. And now this Nobel Peace Prize that was given to Trump by the acting president of Venezuela, he says, I'm thinking there's probably a thumb drive in the back of that has all the information about 2020. So that's on Fox News.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's this other clip here. Hopefully the audio will be better. This was Dave who posted this one. Let's go ahead and listen to this.
Is left-wing bias. I agree with you. I thought you were going to go somewhere else, but Jesse, what about you? Mystery and history?
You know what I'm going, Craig.
Yeah.
2020 election, baby.
Yeah.
I've been dreaming about this a lot recently, and it's not necessarily the machine.
Yes. Yeah. I had the same dream.
It's not the machines or the software. It's the mail-in ballots.
Yes. Yeah.
The lack of surveillance and chain of custody.
I had this dream that Maduro made a deal with Trump to tell us everything about the election. I had that dream. Sean Davis was in it.
Ooh, he's a good.
So there you have it. I mean, they're mainstreaming this stuff at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So,
they look like cats who just swallowed the mice, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this, by the way, this was the report that I was talking about earlier about North Korea. So they're putting that back on the front burner. Well, maybe not quite the front burner, but you can bet that before long, there's going to be some optics in North Korea as well. So we are undoubtedly advancing in the scripted movie, folks. And the Overton window is shifting dramatically. I mean, the fact that they're having these types of conversations on Fox News for the target audience. And let's not forget, I mean, there's a heck of a lot of MAGA normies out there, as we call them, or as Mike calls them, Magadonians.
Magadonians, yeah.
They're getting red pilled on Fox News, folks.
Yeah.
And that's an indicator that we have indeed accelerated into the next phase of the operation. So anyway, it took me a while to dig out for that, to find it, but I thought it would be relevant given our earlier conversation. So with that, let's go back into our slides here. And in the historical segment every week, Mike takes us back. Basically what we were just talking about, connecting the dots between the history and where we find ourselves right now in the Q operation. And so much of what he's going to lay out here is, I do believe, central to your latest book, which you previewed for us a couple of weeks ago, centering around this time period, right? Like between 1913 and the build up to World War I. I'm not sure exactly, but this is kind of that zone. So Mike, take it away. Tell us how the good Kaiser became the bad Kaiser.
Mm-hmm. Well, the book is going to focus primarily on the Federal Reserve and the income tax and all of the intrigue that went behind it, the backstory.
Okay, so is that okay?
But I do mention World War I in passing, kind of, because the establishment of both the Fed and the income tax were essential, because the following year they served as funding mechanisms for World War I, even though it would not be until 1917 that the United States finally declared war. But what's interesting when we go back in time, and what motivated me to write this article is something I found in the old archives of the New York Times, which I love to slum through. The truth gems are there for the taking, very tedious and time consuming. I really need a full-time staff to pull all the diamonds out of there. But sometimes you find something there and you experience the thrill of discovery, and you just want to write about it and get it out. And that's what happened here with this piece. I call it Good Kaiser becomes Bad Kaiser. And that's Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany. And so you see opposite images there. Was he a saint or was he a devil? So let's have a closer look at the transformation of Kaiser Wilhelm, at least in the public perception. And it reminds me so much of something from 1984, George Orwell's novel, also made into a movie, which was very true to the book, by the way. Yep. And you see in that first image there's the protagonist of 1984, Winston Smith. He's a Q-tard, essentially, right? So, I mean, it's just a nightmarish dystopian world governed by Big Brother and his government, and everything is surveillance. You see the TV screen there. It has to be on at all times in your apartment or at certain times, and they can detect whether you're watching or not. If not, you'll hear a voice come in, Smith, where are you? Yep. Nightmarish world, total mind control, ultimate normiedom. But this character, Winston Smith, he's figuring stuff out that doesn't make sense. And that's basically the book is his narrative. He's keeping an illegal journal. And one of the things he realizes is that all of the propaganda of the state that he lives in, there's three big regional groupings: Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia. And Oceania is at war with East Asia. But he remembers that we used to be allies with East Asia against Eurasia. And he writes in his journal, the past was alterable. The past never had been altered. Oceania was at war with East Asia. Oceania had always been at war at East Asia. I'm not sure if he wrote that in his journal or if that's Orwell wrote that in the book. But the idea was he's thinking to himself, WTF, we were just besties with East Asia. Now we're enemies, and we're told that we were always enemies. We weren't.
Ultimate gaslighting. Yeah, it's been it's been a long time since I read this book, but yeah, it's coming back to me now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, it's always like amusing to me. People always speak of this novel in like a reverential way. What a great book, how prophetic. He was giving us a warning, Orwell, this and that. But somehow people don't seem to understand how it applies, both to the modern day as well as to historical events. It's totally applicable, and yet everyone misses it. They call you a conspiracy theorist. So how can that be? Talk about doublethink. How can 1984 be a profound work of literature and political science in one hand, and then in the next breath, when you talk about conspiratorial forces manipulating society, you're called crazy? The same people will call you crazy conspiracy theorists. Go figure.
Yeah, well, they think that that for some reason they think that the New World Order that we clearly recognize is the opposite of what was presented in 1984, which is, again, it's probably one of the classic case studies in the way that a normie brain functions, or perhaps we can say doesn't function, that they can't recognize that exactly what Orwell was writing about is the world that we live in now.
Yeah.
Orwell
himself refers to that as doublethink.
Well, right, exactly.
You're holding two seemingly mutually exclusive ideas in your head at the same time and believing in both. It's weird, but we see this with our normie brethren, don't we?
Well, yeah, that's the whole idea of gaslighting, right?
Yeah.
So
the parallel jumped right out at me from these old stories I was reading in New York Times. There's Kaiser Wilhelm II. He is essentially the embodiment of East Asia. He just went from the villain, admired, to a monster. I mean, even to this day, when you talk about the Kaiser, it's you still have that negative stink to his name.
Yep.
So let's have a deeper look at this amazing transformation. And I split this into 3 sections: good Kaiser, and then there's intermediate Kaiser, or half and half Kaiser, and then there's bad Kaiser. Well, lo and behold, look what I dug up in the New York Times. This is pre-1914. 1914, August 1914 is the beginning of World War I. This is from 1913. It's his silver anniversary as the Kaiser of Germany. And yes, that is the New York Times you're looking at there. You talk about a puff piece, an entire interior section of the New York Times dedicated to praising Kaiser Wilhelm. This is 1 year before World War I. Isn't that wild?
Wow.
And look at the first page, for example. This isn't the front page of a newspaper. It's the front page of an interior section, a magazine section of the paper. The Kaiser, 25 years a ruler, hailed as chief peacemaker. Peacemaker?
Wow.
The Kaiser? And the Times solicited all of these important, famous people to write a love letter. Kaiser Wilhelm. And you see them there, that first one, Theodore Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt, yeah.
Andrew Carnegie. These are all big name people gushing over the Kaiser.
Oh, yeah.
What a great man. Right? The peacemaker of Europe. And he was. He did everything he could, as did his father, as did Bismarck. I mean, he made the fatal error early on of not listening to Bismarck. There's a whole story there. But he was the peacemaker of Europe, and he was a very, under his regime, Germany really came into its own. It's a relatively new nation as a United Nation. It only came into existence 1871, okay? But during that time, it just boomed economically. The British didn't like that. They don't like anyone who could compete with them, all right? But yeah, he was considered a rock star. Everybody loved the Kaiser. What a great leader, the peacemaker.
So this is 1913.
1913. This is the Jewish-owned, the Oaks Sulzberger family, who own it to this day, by the way. Isn't that amazing? Well, actually, they don't, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And here they are, just heaping praise on him.
Wow.
Let's look at this. Look at the second page there. Kaiser Wilhelm II, Peacemaker by Andrew Carnegie. Yes, I meant the second page on that side. And look at the subheadline: the civilized world this day bows reverently before you, writes the American peace advocate, in congratulating the emperor on the occasion of his Jubilee celebration. Now, mind you, all of these love letters were solicited by the Times. They went out and got these famous people. Hey, say some nice words about the Kaiser. We love him.
Wow.
What's going on?
What is going on here? This is the same guy that they vilified in a matter of like, what was it, 3 years later? He was the devil?
Yeah, well, we're going to see the shocking transformation. And most importantly, the reasoning behind it. There's always a method to the madness. Here's a couple more. I think it's 5-6 pages in all, but here's a couple more. Era of progress and peace, say noted Germans. Okay. Peace advocate. And that word peace keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Because there was always this, there was always this maneuvering by the British, always the British, to try and create alliances and get maybe get Russia and Germany to fight. And by this time, the competing alliances had already been set up. I should mention, yeah, the Triple Entente, which is Britain, France, and they sucked in Russia, and then in the center, Germany and Austria-Hungary were allied together.
Wow!
But he always worked to keep good relations with Russia and the West. There's no question. It's always been the case. Germany never wanted war. Germany bears absolute 0% culpability for the Franco-Prussian War, later on World War I, World War II. They really do. And it's all in my book, The Bad War, which you're not going to find on Amazon, by the way. If you want my World War II book, which also covers World War I, you got to go to my website for the World War II section. But that word keeps coming up, peacemaker. So economic boom and peace and prosperity. That's what his 25-year reign was all about. And nobody could deny it. And everybody's praising him. Even his wife gets a love letter. She gets a whole page. Look at this. Influence on the German empress on Kaiser's reign. No other consort of a Prussian ruler ever wielded such a beneficent influence over her husband or made such an impression upon the people by whom she is regarded with profound affection. You got to read these articles.
Wow. So this is the Jewish-owned New York Times,
right?
Who are like gushing all over these very same people that ultimately, in a few short years, they would demonize and ultimately blame for the outbreak of World War I,
right? And
hit them with the Treaty of Versailles and everything else.
Right.
This is incredible.
It is. It shocked even me. And, wow. There's just so many levels of this stuff when you go back in history. And look at the date. That's June. The war is the following August. So this is just 1 year and 2 months before the outbreak of the war.
Did you recently come across this, Mike? Or is this something you knew about?
Just found this. Just found this. I mean, I was aware of the fact that initially there was not anti-German heavy propaganda in this country.
Right.
There's a reason for that.
Right. Yeah.
That certain things had to be put in place. So there was almost like amongst this crowd of people a hands-off Germany approach. So I was aware of the transformation. Not at this extent, though. This really surprises me.
So is this all? I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder here, but I have to ask: is this all a ruse, or was it really the truth that these Jewish oligarchs were actually viewing the Kaiser in Germany in a positive light at this point? Was this a tactic, or was this for real?
It's all about who's useful to us at a certain point in time, and we're going to get into that. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Okay, next panel. Here we go.
All right, so that's good, Kaiser. Now, World War II breaks out in 1914. There's the assassination of the Austrian Archduke by a Serbian nationalist, which the press in Vienna begins blaming on Serbia. You're inciting our Serbian population. Serbia says, no, we got nothing to do with it. And the whole intricate domino effect starts to fall because Serbia is backed by Russia. Russia is in an alliance with Germany and France. They sucked Russia in. This is the whole purpose. World War I was planned many years in advance. The Kaiser is allied to Austria, and he's trying to restrain Austria from moving on Serbia. And at the same time, he's trying to restrain Russia because the Tsar, Nicholas, is his first cousin, by the way. And they're frantically exchanging telegrams. And then the Kaiser's reaching out to France. What will you do if Austria moves on Serbia? And France says, we are committed to the defense alliance with Russia. So like everything's ready to get triggered. And that's why those alliances were set up. But there's just no question about it. And Germany was the last of the powers to mobilize. The Kaiser was frantically, at the 11th hour, trying to prevent this thing from activating.
Now, who gave the order to take out the Archduke?
That's Cabal, because that was Cabal. Those were Serbian ultra-nationalist secret society. And This goes back to the 1900s with Benjamin Disraeli. They made a dirty deal where instead there's this enclave, Bosnia-Herzegovina, there's a Serbian enclave. And after the Russo-Turkish War, instead of placing these people under Serbia, making them part of Serbia because they're Serbians, they made them part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And then they could incite them. Like, we want our independence. We want to be part of Serbia.
Okay.
I mean, look, the radicals who actually shoot the bullets and throw the bombs, they may not even realize how they're being played. But
so the same cabal, that put out this huge puff piece on the Kaiser gave the order to take out the Archduke, knowing full well what this would do in terms of
because they knew how the sequence of events would play out after that.
Okay.
And the cabal had influence in the Austrian press, and they were really creating pressure and fanning the flames of hatred against Serbia. But Serbia didn't kill the Archduke. A Serbian nationalist in Austria-Hungary, incited by his invisible cabal masters, killed the Archduke.
Gotcha.
So this was all set up. None of this is spontaneous. None of this is spontaneous. If you think it's spontaneous, have a look at the license plate of the vehicle which the Archduke was traveling in when he and his wife were both murdered. License plate 11/11/18. What is the date of the armistice?
11/11.
Germany 11/11/18. Features prominently in the Q post too.
Right.
That's
well, the reason I asked you that is because it seems very. I mean, we've talked about this before, and I just want to make sure that really more for the audience sake, right?
Yeah.
I knew that the cabal gave the order to take out the Archduke, but it seems rather counterintuitive that the same group of people would be puffing up the Kaiser only a year. Well, when was the Archduke assassinated? What year?
Well, there's a reason. He was assassinated in August of 1914.
1914. So
within 7 to 10 days, the whole of Europe blew up.
Okay,
the alliances got triggered. Yeah.
All right, now you really got me intrigued here. I want to know the reason.
So there's your headlines. This is very short. Soon after the assassination, England declares war on Germany. What the hell are they doing? I mean, they're over there on that island. They couldn't wait. They're chomping at the bit. British ships sunk. French ships defeat German. Belgium attacked. Look at the other headline. Germany invades Belgium. And this was used by the British for propaganda purposes and the French. A tiny Belgium overrun by the German hordes. Belgium was not neutral. The Belgium was under the influence of France. Tiny country, size of New Jersey. The idea was to grant safe passage into Germany.
Yeah, so they had to invade. They had
Right.
to invade to get rid of
So
that.
this plan was effective. So Germany now struck out in both directions in self-defense against Russia in the east and against France and Britain in the west. But this got spun. This got spun into the Kaiser started the war.
Yeah, right. Because there was about to be a two-front war against Germany, so they did that in self-defense.
That was the whole scheme behind that triple entente. That's why Russia was seduced into an alliance with France and England, because Russia wanted another crack at Turkey, Russo-Turkish War, and they figured, okay, we're going to get warm water ports. We might even get Constantinople back. They didn't want to go to war with Germany. The true target was Turkey. But then Turkey was allied with Germany. So it's a whole big mess.
Yeah,
and everything just gets triggered. Everything blows up. But everybody had a motive. Mm-hmm. Russian imperialists, the British, who wanted to keep Germany down, the French, and then, of course, above all, the one world order cabal, which just wanted to blow up all of Europe and then turn them into democracies and build the League of Nations New World Order.
Yeah, that was their is it true, Mike, that the primary objective of World War I in terms of well, I shouldn't say that because there were other objectives, but one of the primary objectives was to get rid of the monarchies in both Germany and Russia.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Because they want controllable democracies in every country, which can be controlled by their puppet politicians and the press, and then begin putting those into a League of Nations system. Okay, now, apart from this altogether, were British interests, which kind of overlapped, but were not totally part of it. They're kind of separate. The British just wanted to knock down a major economic competitor. And the French wanted to reclaim territory lost in the Franco-Prussian War, which they started in the 1870s. So there's also nationalistic reasons for this on the part of Britain, France, and Russia. And then you have the cabal capitalizing on it all. Okay. And then in the end, they would emerge.
They really wanted the League of Nations, and they wanted to get rid of these monarchies. That was the primary objective of the cabal at that time.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Especially Russia.
Especially Russia.
Hated Tsar, especially. Okay. And there's the caption that I wrote. Though Germany was falsely blamed for being responsible for the outbreak of the war in 1914, President Wilson was not going to involve the U.S. in the war until certain other objectives were first achieved by the Jewish cabal globalists and Zionists. So at this time, when Wilson is saying we're neutral, we're not getting involved, and he's under total orders, he's under blackmail. He was Epsteined by the Jewish cabal. There's a whole story there.
Yeah.
So he was actually sincere about not wanting to involve us in the war. But it wasn't no war. It was really not yet. That was his thinking. Meanwhile, the ex-president, lunatic warmonger, Teddy Roosevelt, he starts screaming for war immediately. What are we waiting for? And he's criticizing Wilson. So he evidently doesn't know the higher picture. He's hooked up with the British. He's essentially a British agent. Yeah.
Were you saying that Wilson was genuine in terms of trying to keep the U.S. out, like he didn't know the full picture? Or
no. What I'm saying is he wanted to involve us in the war, but certain objectives had to be achieved first.
Right. Okay.
So when he said at this time we're not getting into the war, that he meant it.
Right.
But
not that we weren't
no war. It's not yet. That's the thinking. And we'll get into this, what the delay was. But Teddy Roosevelt evidently was not part of this plot. He doesn't understand the delay. He's screaming for war as an ex-president. He's attacking Wilson. Whole story there.
Yeah. A lot of gray area with Teddy, right? Because he also opposed the League of Nations after the war. But he did a lot of really bad stuff too. So
boy, he was chomping at the bit. And but there's a reason for the delay. We're going to cover the reason. And even after the sinking of the Lusitania in May of 1915, and Roosevelt and some of his pro-war clique were certain that we were going to go to war at that time. Even then, Wilson kept us out of the war, when he could easily have gotten us into the war after the sinking of Lusitania. So why? Why is Wilson, who has every intention of getting into the war, as a plan all along, a cabal, why the delay? That is the question.
Okay.
So that's the deal now. I call this half and half Kaiser, because if you read the U.S. press coverage, it's not vicious. It's not vilification of the Kaiser. It's more of, he's responsible. He could have stopped this. So it's kind of like it was measured, right? They wanted to put it out there that Germany's probably to blame for this war, but at the same time, you don't see mass hysteria.
So they're kind of like they're engineering public opinion. They're beginning to shift it, but they can't do it too rapidly.
Yeah, because they know in due time that they'll go to war against Germany. The trick is not to go too early. So they played it. They calibrated just perfectly. That's why I call it half and half Kaiser.
Right. Because the Jews were treated very well in Germany, right? And there were a lot of
exactly. So many American Jews had either come from Germany or their parents came from Germany. Okay. They were treated very well there. They practically owned already at that time. They owned the press, big positions in academia. They had no complaints about Germany at all.
Yeah, right.
And partly for that reason, a lot of them were sympathetic towards Germany.
Yeah.
But,
wow.
So
boy, how that changed.
Yeah, it changed. All right, sure did.
All right.
So that's half and half Kaiser now. So now it's more like a neutral, somewhat negative, but not full-blown hysteria yet because it's still not time. They're just prepping.
All right, let's move on here.
Here's Woody Wilson here. Quote, "The United States must be neutral in fact as well as in name. We must be impartial in thought as well as in action." Now, he was put there specifically for the purpose of bringing the United States into World War I when the time was right. So why is he saying this? Look at that campaign button, 1916. War in Europe, peace in America. God bless Wilson. So this is the whole campaign pitch. I kept the country out of war. There's another one. He has kept us out of war. Wilson. What's going on here?
What is going on? All right. Let's keep going.
Okay. Now we get to Bad Kaiser. From 1917 to eternity, he becomes Bad Kaiser. Now, here is the reason, two reasons for the delay. There were two prerequisites which had to occur before Wilson could bring the United States into World War I. And this is the Jewish Kabbalah's engineering this. Number one, Palestine. In December of 1916, the Zionist leaders approached Great Britain. Germany had a very generous standing peace offer on the table, which essentially said, let's just call the whole war off. Let's stop. Each of the major powers had lost like 1 million men. Let's just stop the war and go to hell home. And a lot of people in France and Britain were receptive to that type of deal. So at this moment, the Zionist leaders and representatives of the British government, they made a verbal agreement. It was not codified and not put into writing in the form of that letter to Sir Walter Rothschild, of course, until a year later, the Balfour Agreement. But their deal was made verbally in December of 1916. And the Jewish offer was essentially this. I'm not quoting anybody. I'm just saying in a general sort of way, this was the thinking. Don't accept Germany's generous peace terms. We will bring the United States into the war on your side, and you will win. We ask in return that you will seize Palestine from the Ottoman Turkish Empire, which was allied with Germany, and allow the Jews to begin settling there as the future homeland. The British made that deal verbally in December of 1916. And that is the foundation right there for what later become the State of Israel. So that's out of the way now, December 1916.
So the vitriol against Germany, that rapid transformation that they were engineering, and was all so that they could, well, at least in part, prerequisite number one was so that they could shift the public opinion against Germany, so that they would, because Germany was allied with the Turks and they wanted to take Palestine. Did I get that right?
They wanted Palestine, right? They do if the warring powers make peace. That's not going to happen. Okay. So this maneuver, they made this offer for the purpose of keeping the war going, but more importantly, essentially extorting Britain. Oh, you can win. You give us Palestine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then they were planning this all along. But you had to get to a point where they didn't want Britain to win. They didn't want the Allies to win too early. Okay. You wanted to get them to a point where then you could intervene and offer them something, but get something in return.
So, okay, well, hold on a second. So going back to 1913, when we saw that puff piece about the Kaiser, certainly the cabal at that point in time already had their plans in place for the outbreak of World War I, right?
Right.
So was that puff piece essentially was that camo to sort of conceal?
Prerequisite number 2 will explain that.
Okay. All right.
And this will bring it all home. Russia. Okay. Germany was fighting Russia, the hated Tsar. While they're fighting Russia, or while they're in an alliance, which could potentially be triggered to fight Russia, the Tsar was useful to the Jewish cabal because they saw Germany. This is like a replay of the Russo-Japanese War in 1905. Why did Jacob Schiff and Rothschild give all this money to the Japanese to fight against Russia? Because they love the Japanese so much. What do they care?
Okay.
Because the Russo-Japanese War went badly, which gave an opportunity to the internal Bolsheviks to trigger their 1905 revolution. Came up short, but it badly damaged and weakened Russia. They wanted a replay now, with Germany doing the heavy lifting. So they only loved the Kaiser because he was the potential enemy, a proxy that could be used to fight Russia, even though he didn't want to fight Russia.
So because the Kaiser could be used to weaken Russia in order for them to have their revolution.
Right. And get rid of the Tsar, which was huge for them.
So the Zionist, is it safe?
The only way to get rid of the Tsar is through war, or a war that goes badly, and then they could rerun 1905, a war with a bad finish, which internally the Bolsheviks use as a perfect pretext. Oh, look at all these dead men! Look at all the economic sacrifice. They always use wars to subvert a country. So that's why they love Kaiser.
Okay. So the Zionists didn't actually really hate the Kaiser. It was always Russia that was the target. And they
precisely right.
So that they could weaken Russia so that the revolutionaries could take over in 1917.
Right.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So
Now,
Tsar Nicholas, who's Wilhelm's first cousin, is forced to abdicate because the war is dragging out now. And exactly as they had done in 1905, during the Russo-Japanese War, the Bolsheviks start up again. And they had all this because the war gave them the opportunity.
Yep.
There were a lot of Russian soldiers who would switch sides and become Bolsheviks. Mm-hmm. Okay, so look, he's sending all of you people to die. Right? Look how bad the economy is here. Down with the Tsar. This was ideal. So it was World War I that triggered the Bolshevik Revolution.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And by March 15, 1917, the Tsar is forced to abdicate. And there's two revolutions that year, actually. The first one produces a democratic socialist government.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is exactly what the cabal wants. And then months later, in October, there's another revolution. The hardcore Bolsheviks topple that government as well. But the Tsar is gone, and he's soon to be murdered alongside his wife and children, all gunned down. So now you got your dirty deal to steal Palestine.
Yeah.
Okay. If the Turks, who are Germany's allies, lose, you got the Tsar out of the way. Now you're going to turn it into a twofer, get rid of the Kaiser as well. The cabal-controlled Wilson is now free to join the war against Germany and remove its monarchy as well. Just 2 weeks later, April 2nd, 1917, Woodrow Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war, and he gets it.
So they always had planned on getting rid of not only the Tsar, but also the monarchy in Germany, right? That was always a part of
exactly. There's no room for Christian monarchies in the New World Order.
So that whole New York Times piece was all just a bunch of BS.
Exactly. What do they care about the Kaiser?
Okay.
And if you go back to the way they used to talk about Japan prior to the Russo-Japanese, it was the same way. Oh, Japan is wonderful. They're making so much progress. What a great country. But
that's what they do when they want to use you as a proxy against them.
They use you. I guess at one time or another, we've all had similar experiences with such people in our lives, right? They get something from you, and they're like, see you later.
Right.
Okay. So that's what happened. So now you got Palestine in your sights. The hated Tsar is out of the way. The next step is Kaiser bad. And boy, did they turn it on. Let's have a look at some of these images here.
All
right. Let me just read this here. As the sudden changing of a traffic light from red to green, and I'm paraphrasing the Jewish whistleblower Benjamin Friedman, he used that analogy, a traffic light, during his 1961 speech. Benjamin Friedman was a young personal assistant to Bernard Baruch. And he later turned.
It's amazing that they let him live. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
You almost wonder if he was under some sort of military or paramilitary Q operation type protection.
Yeah. Well, I guess back then the damage he could do was like so limited. You know, they kind of just let him go. The ADL said he was a self-hating Jew, you know.
And that was sufficient. Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't really have to control the damage, so to speak, but he was doing. They could
but it was really like that because while the Tsar was still in power, the Jews of this country did not want to go to war against Germany because that relieves pressure from the Tsar. Plus the fact that they came from Germany and they were well treated, they had nothing to complain about, right?
Right. Yeah.
But all of a sudden, now that there was something in it for them regarding Palestine and that the Tsar was out, the cabal and all of its media mouthpieces and political operatives instantly shifted into wall-to-wall, all-out Kaiser bad, Germany bad mode. War hysteria sweeps the nation as frightened German Americans changed their names from Mueller to Miller, Schmidt to Smith, and the Drumps changed their name to Trump during this period.
Yeah.
They really whipped the normies up into a frenzy. The German measles became the Liberty measles. It's great.
Really?
The Kaiser, so lavishly admired in the pages of the paper of record, as we just saw, as the peacemaker of Europe just a few years earlier, has outlived his usefulness to the cabal.
Yep.
You could say that Wilhelm became Hitler before Hitler became Hitler.
Mm-hmm. So once Russia gets weakened to the point where the revolutionaries can take control in Russia in 1917,
The czar is out. Yeah.
then it just becomes well, now we got to take out Germany for two primary reasons. We want to get rid of the Christian monarchy, and we want Palestine. And in order for those two things to happen,
you got it. As soon as the U.S. entered, Wilson sends the Americans into the teeth of the German military machine, chewed up like meat grinders, 150,000 dead in only 9 months of actual fighting. This enables the British to go south and concentrate on Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All those men killed, maimed for these sons of bitches here. Cabal.
Unbelievable.
And let's have a look at the final transformation into Bad Kaiser. This is the kind of stuff that was permeating all throughout the country. Wilson set up a propaganda committee headed by Edward Bernays, father of American propaganda. Okay.
Yep.
Same character who he got all these women smoking. He made it cool, turned it into a women's liberation thing. I think he's behind bacon and eggs for breakfast. So look at this stuff. There's the Kaiser now, and just contrast that to that spread that we reviewed at the beginning of this presentation just a few years earlier. Here he is eating the world. Look at the second one. He's the spider. He's a head on a spider. The web is spun for you with invisible threads. Keep out of it to help destroy it. Spies are listening. Ask yourself if you were about to say, they made you think that they were over here. It really freaked people out. There's like a few cases where innocent German Americans were murdered.
And meanwhile, none of the normies are picking up on this, right? 1913.
They don't know what they're fighting for. No.
Normies are going to norm. We say it all the time, but we're not talking about a long period of time, Mike. We're talking about a span of 4 years here.
Yeah.
Incredible. Should I go to the next one?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, there's hundreds of these. There is the Kaiser, the world is mine. And then you have the Allies standing shoulder to shoulder. We don't think so. Help Uncle Sam stamp out the Kaiser, buy U.S. bonds.
Man, people are.
And the newly formed Fed would rebuy these on the open market. So the Fed played a big role, as did the income tax. Mm-hmm. So you see the timing. They nailed this thing. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
They got their boy Wilson in there. They got the Fed. They got the income tax. They got the war.
And nobody's questioning any of this, right? Or at least not effectively.
Well, look, I'm sure there were people who were hip to this, but imagine how intimidating it must have been. It would be akin to you being the guy walking into a store without a mask during COVID days.
Fair.
Right? You ever see some of those? You ever see that video of the one lady? I think it was in Staten Island. She didn't have a mask on. Yeah. Like a dozen normies converged on her, screaming at. Right? That's how it was. That's how it was.
And there was no real way to spread truthful information at that point.
No, just too intense.
So I've said so many times that none of this Q operation. I mean, without the internet, it goes nowhere. There's really a fundamentally key component to the military-civilian alliance to give the people the tools to be able to spread truthful information and share ideas.
Yeah.
To counter the propaganda machine, but they didn't have that back then. So complete control. Wow. So what we're talking about, folks?
Look at this.
The dots.
Everybody is loved by somebody, and there's Kaiser with Satan. Oh,
and we laugh at this today, but this is like people took this dead seriously.
Yeah, but how far removed is this from Osama bin Laden days?
That's true.
Think about it, or COVID hoax. Beat back the Hun with Liberty bonds. This one is really famous and iconic by Fred Rothman. I just remember as a little boy seeing this in my history books. And it just gave me such a negative impression of Germans. It took me just years to get past that. You would hear Germans, ooh,
yeah.
Huns. Germans aren't Huns. Huns were Asiatics who threatened the Germans. So retarded.
Yeah.
Destroy this mad brute. Look at that.
Yeah.
A mad German guerrilla with, you'll see a lot of such imagery in war propaganda. World War II also. You'll have the fair maiden who's fainted and she's being taken off to be ravaged.
Yep.
Enlist. Heavy pressure to enlist. A lot of this propaganda would shame the young men for not enlisting and going to fight this war.
Yep. And it was the same in World War II. I mean, there were so many stories about young men who even went so far as committing suicide because they couldn't go to war for whatever reason. They didn't meet the physical requirements. I mean, it was a very, very different time, almost impossible for us to even imagine what that.
Yeah, it is. And you know, ironically, one of the drawbacks of a day and age when love of country and patriotism is more widespread.
Could be easily manipulated.
The very same virtue can then be twisted and manipulated.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. All right. Let's see here. We got.
Look at this stuff.
Wow.
And these were false claims put out by the British propagandists, circulated all throughout the United States. Teddy Roosevelt was even repeating this crap, that the Germans were crucifying and raping women in Belgium. So there's an image there. The husband's been murdered. The baby's been murdered. The woman's
that was
clothes,
actually
you
the
could see,
Russians
been
that were
ripped.
doing that, the Bolsheviks.
Yeah. Total projection.
Yep.
Exact projection. They crucify American manhood, enlist. And you wonder how many young men, 19, 20, 21, see an image like that. And they actually went out and enlist and got themselves killed or gassed. There's another one. Oh, the babies with the bayonets. There's a bunch of these. So there's a German soldier stabbing a little Belgian baby with a bayonet. And the caption, it's a little cut off. It says for God and Emperor. So he's doing that for Kaiser.
Then it just evolved a little bit more. We got to the 90s. Babies were in incubators, taken out.
Incubators, right? Yeah,
right.
Same thing. Always the babies.
Yep. Well, it's the babies and the women. It's the ravaging of innocence that's what riles people up, and then you put it right there. I mean, here is this propaganda picture of a woman being crucified, the dead baby on the ground, and then it says American manhood. Like, are you going to stand for this?
Yeah.
And
what kind of man are you? You're not going to enlist. Don't wait to be drafted. And there was a draft, of course.
Yep. Amazing. Okay. Let's see here. What else we got? Oh, here's.
So
I think this is the last page.
Look at these objectives. Yep. Look what they achieved. Look what the cabal achieved through this manipulation. Tsar of Russia abandons throne. Army revolts and joins the people. So the Russian Empire falls. 1918, abdication of the Kaiser. Revolution in Germany. He's forced to leave, and Berlin was actually taken over by Jewish Bolsheviks. It didn't last long, but they almost replicated what they had done in Russia.
Russia, yeah.
Elements of the army put that down. But nonetheless, a libtarded democratic socialist government was then instituted in Germany. And we know the story about the reparations. 100% of the blame was placed on Germany. Right. Read the Bad War.
Was Hitler involved in putting down the Bolshevik Revolution?
No, he was a corporal. He was twice wounded, received the Iron Cross.
Okay.
But he was not part of that Free Corps unit, which took back Berlin. But at the end of the war is when he started to become political and educate himself.
Right.
They say, what the hell happened? Why did we just surrender like that? They were also internally betrayed. But this year is the beginning of Hitler's movement. Yep. And they're going to have to replay this 20 years later because the United States did not get into the League of Nations.
Right.
And here's the third great accomplishment of this trifecta. What a year this was. This all happened in the span of like a year and a half. Palestine for the Jews, official sympathy, Mr. Balfour, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And the Jews began immigrating in large numbers to Palestine. Nobody asked the local Arabs what they felt about it. It remained under the jurisdiction of the British, however, until 1948.
Yep. Wow.
So boom, boom, boom. Major policy objectives. None of this by accident. And now you understand the dynamic of the reason why he went from good Kaiser, almost a sainted Kaiser, to a monster in just a short period of time.
Wow. Now, was finding that puff piece the motivation to get you to write the article? Because I know that most of this stuff was. Sorry about that. I know that you knew most of this stuff already. I mean, what was it that prompted you?
Yeah, I did. I would not have otherwise have written it because I was shocked at the degree of the puffery and the love shown. I was not expecting that. I knew that there was a shift from pro-German to anti-German, but that was like really, really caught me by surprise. And I felt it's such a powerful piece because it just it really illustrates that point that George Orwell was making in the book. How they just gaslight us, and we can just switch,
Right.
And it's interesting. During the 1920s, we went back to loving Germany because there was this kind of a historical revisionism of World War I. The intensity wore off, and a lot of second guessing began.
Yeah. And
then we went back to hating the Germans, World War II. And then after the Soviets took over East Germany, at the Berlin airlift, we went back to, we loved Germans. So they could just turn it on and off, on and off. And that's exactly what was described in 1984. Only people seem to think that that's like fiction. I mean, but no, there's a real life example of it. Japan too, by the way, I should mention.
Yeah.
Once the Tsar was out, Japan started being vilified. Because, So it changed a lot of things. And it just shows that the cabal played Japan and Germany.
Wow. Amazing, Mike. Amazing work.
Yeah.
Mike King of Real News and History, folks. Make sure you support him. Go check out his website. Again, that's realnewsandhistory.com. You're going to see all of the relevant links in the description of the video. Link to his webpage, link to his Rumble channel. Also his Amazon page, and I believe his X as well probably should be linked in there. And so as we're wrapping things up here, Mike, I just took a quick peek on X, and it appears as if Greg Bavino has been relieved of duty as Commander-at-Large of the Border Patrol. So we're going to have to see how that plays out as well. But thought I'd just kind of throw that out there. I know that you're working on a piece for Minnesota. You mentioned that earlier on tonight. Usually that's my last question for you. So I imagine that's going to come out tomorrow.
No, late tonight.
Late tonight? Okay. Awesome.
And I've put in the finishing touches on that, as well as my upcoming book. That's in the final stages as well.
I can't wait.
That's going to be a banger.
I cannot.
That was really an intense period in American history, every bit as much so as the run up to World War II and World War II itself and the immediate aftermath.
Yeah.
Actually, there hasn't even been a single decade that did not have intense drama when you look at it.
Yeah.
You know?
But 1913, though, I mean, the establishment of the Federal Reserve, I mean, that was really and the buildup that we just covered ultimately to World War I, which was the first major step toward their plan for world government. I mean, so many things, so many critical things happened. So I cannot wait to read that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much, everybody out there, for listening. I haven't mentioned this once tonight, but please do us both a favor and make sure that you hit that thumbs up button. Again, make sure you're following Mike King on his Rumble channel. And if you happen to be listening to this tonight, and you're not following my channel on Rumble, please do so. I would also ask kindly that you follow both of us on X, as Mike indicated a little bit earlier. The higher the numbers, the more the more legitimacy the channel has in the eyes of, I guess, the general public, but also it helps tremendously with the algorithms in terms of boosting the content out to more people, to expose them to this truly cutting-edge, truthful information. So we really do appreciate everybody taking the time to tune in tonight. I'll be back a little bit later in the week, hopefully with SG Anon. I've got to confirm with him. And then I'm also going to be doing a show with my good friend, the Maestro, next Saturday. So hopefully folks will tune in for that as well. God bless, Godspeed, everybody. Until the next time, Patriot out.
Good night, everyone.